Do you know that feeling, right? That constant, almost invisible hum of technology just making our lives a little bit smoother, a little bit faster, like finding the quickest route across town instantly or ordering groceries with just a tap. It definitely simplifies tasks that used to take real mental effort, a routine exercise for our minds. And it's often hailed as this great human achievement, the ultimate problem solver. But what if this amazing blessing is also kind of subtly a curse? What if underneath all that seamless convenience, technology is actually making us weaker in ways we don't even see happening? Quietly eroding capabilities we just took for granted, things that really define us. Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to dive deep into a really fascinating source. It's called The Double-Edged Sword. Is Technology Making Us Weaker? By Mehdi Hassan. And this piece, it doesn't just ask questions, it makes a pretty provocative argument, maybe even a challenging one. It suggests that while tech gives us immense convenience, it might come at a big cost, one we don't often talk about. A cost to our cognitive strength, our memory, even our basic self-discipline. It's like an
Yeah, what's truly fascinating here, I think, is that the author isn't just bashing technology, not at all. It's not a Luddite argument. Instead, this deep dive asks us to critically look at the benefits, and they're abundant, transformative, absolutely, but then immediately pivot to that crucial double-edged sword idea. The real challenge, as the source points out, is how deeply technology is woven into our lives now. It's so seamless, that the subtle shifts it causes in how we think, maybe even how we feel, often go completely unnoticed. So we're not talking about rejecting these tools wholesale. That's not the point. It's more about fostering a deeper, much more nuanced understanding of their impact, their profound, often unseen impact on our basic human faculties. It's about becoming really aware of the cognitive territory, maybe even emotional territory we might be giving up bit by bit in this relentless chase for convenience. A chase that promises efficiency, sure, but, as the source asks, at what cost to our internal capabilities?
And that awareness, as the source really brilliantly illustrates, starts with something so fundamental. It's something we barely think about anymore, our memory. Hassan kicks things off by reminding us of a time, and it really wasn't that long ago, when people could just reel off phone numbers effortlessly. I mean, think about it. Your family, relatives, close friends, you just knew their numbers. They were like ingrained, part of your mental database.
Mhm.
But today, we carry these incredibly powerful smartphones, basically supercomputers, in our pockets. Yet, it's pretty unlikely any of us have memorized even one new phone number in years. We just don't feel we need to. The ability is probably still there deep down, but the actual practice of remembering, it's vanished.
That's precisely it. That's a perfect example of what psychologists often call cognitive offloading. We are, quite literally, handing over a core mental task, the job of remembering, to external tools, to these digital giants, Google, Apple, Facebook. They become our external hard drives. So our brains, instead of actively retrieving and reinforcing that information through use, just need to know where to find it. Or even more passively, they just know the information will be presented to them when needed. And this raises a really crucial question, one the source implicitly asks us to think about. What happens to our brains when those specific pathways, the ones for active recall, aren't regularly used? Is it a genuine loss of capability, like do those cognitive muscles atrophy, or is it just a shift? Our brains prioritizing different things, maybe freeing up space for other more complex stuff. The source sort of nudges us towards thinking that while the brain is incredibly adaptable, yes, and might reallocate resources, those specific circuits for active, effortful recall, they could definitely become less efficient. They might even get pruned back if we consistently don't use them.
That's a really critical point, efficiency versus actual deep cognitive engagement. It's not the same thing at all. And the source also points out how social media, like Facebook, has basically taken over remembering birthdays. That used to be a memory exercise in itself, didn't it? A deliberate act of recall, maybe planning, getting a card, a personal gesture. Now, a notification pops up, often with a pre-written greeting suggestion just a click away. It's undeniably convenient, streamlines our social duties. But pause for a second. Think about the subtle change in the nature of those relationships. Is a happy birthday that comes from a notification and a generic message, even if it's well-intentioned, really the same as remembering yourself, making the effort, buying a card, making a heartfelt call that shows you remembered? The source suggests, pretty compellingly, I think, that these connections can start to feel a bit more artificial, maybe performative. When the effort of personal memory is outsourced, you're just reacting to a digital nudge rather than acting from your own memory and intention.
Exactly. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, it really speaks to this pervasive trend of reducing personal effort in how we interact socially. Sure, we gain a certain efficiency, no doubt about it. But the core insight here is that a vital depth can be lost, profoundly lost. When the brain isn't doing the work of remembering, Or maybe the heart isn't doing the work of showing personal remembrance through actual effort. The quality of that cognitive and emotional engagement just fundamentally shifts. It's not just about convenience. It's about subtly changing what caring looks like, moving from something active, effortful, deeply personal, to something more passive, prompted, often kind of generalized. Can real human connection, the deep stuff, genuinely thrive on constantly outsourced effort? The source really makes us question if the cost is a certain authenticity in our relationships.
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. So we're not just forgetting phone numbers or birthdays, we're kind of streamlining the very essence of how we connect. But this outsourcing of mental effort, this handing over of capability, it's not entirely new, is it? It's a pattern we've seen before. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the source takes us back a bit, reminds us to think about the rise of the humble pocket calculator back in the 1970s. It wasn't an overnight thing, but slowly, kind of insidiously, people started relying on it. And now, most of us, and I'll confess I'm definitely in this group, we hesitate to trust our own mental math, even for simple stuff, like splitting a dinner bill or figuring out a tip. It's almost like there's this background anxiety about getting it wrong without that digital crutch.
Oh, absolutely. This is the classic calculator effect. It's such a powerful illustration of how a tool, initially designed to help a human skill, can, over time, subtly replace it, diminish that innate capability. The source highlights this perfectly with that anecdote about the writers' university entrance exams. Calculators were banned, caused widespread panic initially among students who've grown so used to them, but then, through sheer necessity, through practice, this untapped, almost forgotten ability for complex multiplication, division, decimals, it wasn't just recovered, it was revealed. That experience really underscores the point. The capability itself wasn't gone. It was just dormant, a cognitive muscle that had weakened from lack of use, just waiting to be woken up again.
That's such a critical distinction. Dormant, not gone. Okay.
Right.
But if the brain has effectively been sidelined for so long in something like arithmetic, does this source suggest there are bigger consequences? Beyond just forgetting how to do long division, like, does it impact our gut feeling for numbers? Maybe our ability to spot when data doesn't make sense, or to think critically about quantitative stuff?
Well, the source implies that yes. It's not just about exams either. It shrewdly notes that many critical competitive exams today, especially for demanding government jobs, civil service positions, they still ban digital devices. They force candidates to rely entirely on their own minds, compel them to re-engage those core skills rigorously. And that's a powerful, real-world testament, isn't it, to the brain's inherent power and our deep capacity for complex problem solving when we're actually pushed to use it and trust it.
So it raises this bigger question then. What's the long-term impact on our basic problem-solving skills, our critical thinking, if we consistently bypass fundamental arithmetic reasoning?
Right. Mental math isn't just about getting the right answer. It's crucial training for developing logical thinking, for honing estimation skills, for really understanding numerical relationships, patterns. If we habitually offload that foundational cognitive work to a device, are we losing more than just the ability to calculate a tip? Are we maybe eroding a fundamental building block for abstract reasoning, for analytical thought, even spatial awareness, perhaps? The source compels us to consider that by neglecting these basic mental exercises, we might be inadvertently limiting our capacity for higher-level thinking down the road.
That's a really profound thought. Okay, so if our math skills are subtly declining and our memories becoming more reliant on external storage, what about navigating the physical world, our actual sense of place? The source brings up another great, super relatable example, the analog clock versus the digital watch. The digital watch, with its clear numbers, no ambiguity, it definitely made us less inclined to interpret the hands on an analog clock face. It eliminated that small but significant act of visual and cognitive interpretation. And then, of course, there's Google Maps. It's put the entire world in our pocket. I mean, unimaginable convenience, revolutionized travel. But Hassan argues at the same time, almost without us noticing, it's weakened our internal compass. Maybe even diminished our innate ability to build a solid mental map of our cities, our surroundings.
Precisely. Think about the subtle cognitive effort involved in reading an analog clock. You're not just reading digits. You're actively processing spatial relationships, understanding angles, gauging time's progression as fractions of a circle, often doing a quick mental calculation for the exact minute. With a digital display, that whole interpretive spatial processing step is just skipped, bypassed. Similarly, Google Maps, indispensable tool for getting from A to B, absolutely. But it has largely replaced our innate ability to build a comprehensive cognitive map of our environment. That's a complex mental process. It traditionally involves actively noticing landmarks, understanding directions, estimating distances, integrating all that sensory and spatial info into a coherent internal picture of our surroundings. The source suggests that now we're often just following a line on a screen, rather than actually constructing that mental framework ourselves.
And the piece powerfully suggests that while maybe we don't get physically lost as often, we are definitely losing those cognitive mapping skills. Skills that go way beyond just finding a new restaurant. It's about how our brains process and engage with our environment on a deeper level. What cognitive benefits are we losing when we don't actively try to figure out our surroundings? To piece together those internal maps of our cities, our neighborhoods, maybe it's a form of active learning we're missing out on. A deeper connection to our physical spaces, enhanced observation skills. It's not just about directions, it feels like it's about a more engaged, intuitive way of experiencing the world and knowing where we are within it.
If you zoom out from that specific example, it definitely implies a measurable reduction in the demand for certain types of spatial reasoning. Visual integration, observational skills. We gain immense efficiency in reaching a destination, sure, but we might be sacrificing that subtle yet vital cognitive workout that comes from orienting ourselves, making those active neural connections. It's a trade-off. And it can have broader consequences for our brain's overall agility, its ability to synthesize complex environmental data. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What happens when the GPS battery dies? Or the signal cuts out in a tunnel? Are we truly lost in a way we wouldn't have been a generation ago? Have we become that dependent?
It really seems like it. So, across memory, math skills, sense of direction, these core cognitive functions are feeling the pressure of convenience. But that raises an even more personal question. If technology is reshaping how we know things, how is it impacting how we do things? Specifically, what does the source say about its influence on our daily habits, our very sense of self-discipline? The source brings up a perfect, almost uncomfortably familiar example: the alarm clock. Initially, it was just a tool, right? Designed to take over the simple job of waking us up. A fundamental bit of daily self-discipline. But now, it's gone further, hasn't it? Most of us, and I think we can all admit this, we set multiple alarms on our phones: 6.30, 7.3, maybe 8.0, like creating this safety net for our own lack of willpower. And yet, we still struggle, still often fail to get up on time. The source argues we've delegated this fundamental aspect of self-discipline so completely that we've become less reliable, less self-regulated.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? The alarm clock starts as an aid to self-discipline, a reminder, a nudge. But now, as the source points out so incisively, we've handed over so much of that basic personal responsibility that we've, ironically, become less reliable in our own internal mechanisms for getting going. The psychological aspect here is pretty profound. When you have multiple safety nets, those backup alarms, each giving you a little reprieve, it can subtly but powerfully reduce your internal motivation, your sense of urgency. The perceived cost of not getting up with the first alarm is way less because you know another one, and maybe another, is just minutes away. It's almost as if the device, trying to help, has somehow undermined our actual will to get up.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly hitting snooze, not just on the alarm, but on our own internal responsibility, our self-efficacy. We are essentially outsourcing the very act of self-regulation to a piece of tech. And this connects to broader themes, doesn't it? Personal responsibility, cultivating an internal locus of control. Especially now, in an age of automated everything. If we find ourselves increasingly unable to rely on ourselves for something as basic, as personal, as waking up, what does that say about how we handle other, more complex parts of our lives, where discipline, initiative, sustained effort are absolutely key? The device isn't just a tool anymore, it's almost become a crutch. And maybe we've leaned on it so hard, we've genuinely forgotten how to stand on our own 2 feet when it comes to self-governance.
So if we're delegating wake-up calls, eroding self-discipline in this really fundamental way, how else might technology be subtly nudging our daily behaviors, especially when it comes to something as vital and often tricky as our personal finances? The source gets into our spending habits here, makes a compelling point that before mobile banking, digital wallets, contactless payments were everywhere. Paying with cash made us way more conscious, more viscerally aware of spending. You physically handed over money, saw it leave your wallet, felt its limit.
Oh, you absolutely felt the pain of paying, didn't you? That tangible exchange. Parting with physical money forced a pause, a little internal friction, made you actively think about the purchase. But now, transactions are just a tap of a card, a wave of a phone, a number changing on a screen. That visceral connection to money, it's largely gone. It becomes incredibly easy to lose track, to spend impulsively. The source points out, and this is backed by studies, that digital payments consistently lead to more spending, often more impulsive spending. It's almost like the money isn't quite real, isn't truly felt until maybe you check your bank balance later and see the damage. The immediacy is lost.
And what's really fascinating there is the psychological impact of that intangibility. Physical money, with its limited denominations, its tactile presence, it inherently forces a kind of mental accounting, a greater awareness of each transaction. Digital money, just abstract numbers on a screen, it abstracts that whole process, makes it feel less like a finite resource you're depleting. Plus, the source wisely mentions how easily we overlook those small transaction fees. Various platforms charge them, sometimes per tap, per transfer. Tiny fees, often invisible on their own, but they add up silently over time, chipping away at our finances without us really noticing. The author's suggestion, try using only cash for a month. It's a powerful experiment, an eye-opener. To re-engage with that tangible sense of spending, to really see where the money goes, forces a kind of cognitive reset.
It's a brilliant challenge for our listeners, actually. I bet the difference in spending habits would genuinely surprise you, just like the source suggests. Forces a much-needed look at financial awareness. Okay, so we're spending more easily, maybe less consciously, less connected to the actual value. What about the stuff we choose to consume? For entertainment, for information? Are we still truly making our own choices, cultivating our own unique tastes? Or something else, something more pervasive, steering the ship? Hassan paints this nostalgic but really sharp picture of a time when we actively curated things. Personal playlists on cassettes, CDs, meticulously memorizing radio frequencies for favorite stations, or cherishing these hand-picked film libraries.
Right, and this is where the source really drills down on the difference between active curation and passive consumption. In the past, building your music collection, your film library, even finding your news sources, it was deliberate, intentional, often effortful. It involved active discovery, developing preferences through exploration, investing time and personal energy. You sought things out, maybe visiting record stores, reading reviews, listening to actual radio DJs who are themselves curators now. Apps like Spotify, YouTube Music, they use sophisticated algorithms to create playlists for us. They anticipate our tastes. Netflix replaces that personal library with this endless, algorithmically sorted catalog. Just search and click.
And the source makes a really compelling argument here. While we gain massive convenience, instant gratification, we lose a big part of our individuality, our unique taste, and crucially, the actual joy of discovery. Our preferences, instead of being formed organically through our own exploration and choices, are now subtly shaped, maybe even dictated, by what an algorithm thinks we'll like. It's a bit like living in a perpetual filter bubble, isn't it? The algorithm, its job is engagement and prediction, so it keeps feeding you variations of what it thinks you already prefer, or what similar people prefer, rather than genuinely challenging you or broadening your horizons. It can lead to this subtle narrowing, intellectually and culturally.
Yeah, and if you connect that to the broader societal picture, it definitely fuels those filter bubbles or echo chambers, where our existing tastes, beliefs, even how we get information, are just constantly reinforced. This potentially impacts not just our personal identity, how we express unique preferences, but also our cognitive flexibility, our openness to new ideas. Are we really developing our own tastes anymore? Or are we just being guided by an external system, a system optimized for predictable consumption, not for genuine intellectual or artistic growth, or that serendipitous discovery that sparks creativity? It raises big questions about the authenticity of our choices when they're so heavily influenced by these opaque algorithms.
This shift from active curation to passive consumption, it really does raise fundamental questions about authenticity, about the richness of our experiences. So if we're letting algorithms shape our tastes, our information diet, how is technology changing the way we record, remember, and maybe even relive our most personal moments and memories? The source digs into the act of journaling nest, that intimate, age-old practice. It used to be so personal, so tactile pen on paper, the physical act of writing, recording thoughts, feelings, events in a real book. Now, that process is largely replaced by typing notes into Google Docs, Microsoft OneNote, or maybe quick ephemeral digital entries somewhere.
And while digital notes are undeniably safer, right, protected from fire or spills, easily searchable, the source argues pretty convincingly that we're losing something far more valuable, more intrinsic, our deep connection to our own memory. There's a definite sensory and cognitive difference between physical journaling, the act of handwriting itself, the feel of paper, the visual layout you create, maybe even the smell of the ink and just typing on a flat screen. That physical multisensory act can significantly help memory formation, emotional processing, maybe even deeper self-reflection. Handwriting, for instance, uses different brain areas than typing. It could potentially create richer neural pathways for remembering.
And this extends dramatically to photos and videos too, doesn't it? Cloud platforms, Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, they let us store thousands, tens of thousands of photos, videos. We build these vast digital archives, usually with the best intentions, right? To look back someday, cherish those moments. But the source makes this poignant, almost heartbreaking point. That day rarely comes. It's a powerful observation. It's almost as if the sheer act of storing has paradoxically replaced the act of remembering. We pile up these massive digital repositories, but we rarely, if ever, actively engage with them in a meaningful way to reinforce the memories, tell the stories behind the pictures, truly relive those moments.
That's the profound paradox of digital archiving, isn't it? We save exponentially more, but we seem to recall significantly less. Could this infinite, effortless storage actually be bad for active memory formation and retrieval? Think about physical photo albums. There were limits. You had to curate, select the most meaningful images, print them. Then you physically handled them, arranged them, flipped through them. That more deliberate, effortful engagement probably fostered much stronger recall, a deeper emotional link to those memories. Now, the sheer overwhelming volume of digital files can feel paralyzing. Makes the act of revisiting and truly remembering seem like this huge task. It can lead to a kind of digital amnesia by overload.
It really feels like a consistent theme, trading the intimacy and effort of personal memory for the vastness and often the passivity of digital storage. And this trend isn't just about our own notes and photos, is it? What about the fundamental experience of engaging with stories, with knowledge from books, a cornerstone of human culture and learning? The source talks about that unique, almost enchanting smell of new books, that multi-sensory experience that's intrinsically part of the magic of reading a physical novel. We don't strictly need to buy them anymore. We can instantly download a PDF from countless places online.
But reading on a blue screen, as the source points out sharply, just does not provide the same rich, multisensory experience. And this is absolutely crucial for deep memory recall and comprehension. With a physical book, you're engaging multiple senses. The weight of it, the texture of the pages, the rustle as you turn them, the specific visual layout, the typography on a physical page, maybe the scent of paper and ink, and the visual progress you make, the stack of read pages growing. These cues act as powerful physical and contextual anchors for our memory. When you mentally bookmark a page number in a real book, you're often not just remembering a digit. You're remembering its physical location in the object, maybe the feel of the paper there, the visual context of the paragraphs around it. All that is lost on a uniform glowing screen.
Exactly. The source notes, quite rightly, I think, that when we read on screens, we often find ourselves forgetting key plot points, memorable quotes, even those mentally bookmarked page numbers we try to hold on to. The critical lack of those physical cues, the tangibility, the satisfying act of turning pages, the unique sensory input, it profoundly impacts our ability to form and retrieve those memories with the same vividness, the same detail. And although the source doesn't explicitly say this, it's widely known that blue light exposure, screen fatigue, that can also impact comprehension, sustained attention, retention, further diminishing that deep, immersive engagement that traditional reading often provides.
This compelling idea, losing sensory experience, diminishing memory recall. It extends beyond just reading. What about how we capture and then remember the actual live moments of our lives? With smartphones everywhere, apps like Snapchat always on hand, memories have increasingly become these filtered, curated stories, instantly shareable. We capture countless photos, an unprecedented volume of images, way more than any generation before. But the source suggests that in focusing so intensely on getting the perfect shot, on framing, filtering, curating, we often tragically forget the raw, unfiltered moments, the genuine stories behind the pictures. The act of capturing overshadows the act of experiencing.
It's a huge shift, isn't it? From living in the moment to capturing the moment. And often, that relentless drive to capture, to document, to share, it subtly pushes aside the actual living and feeling of the experience itself. We get so preoccupied trying to frame the perfect image, find the right filter, create a shareable story for others, that the raw, authentic, imperfect experience itself takes a backseat. This can lead to what you might call performative memory, where we're actively creating these curated, often idealized, maybe even somewhat artificial versions of our experiences, primarily for external consumption, not for our own internal benefit, our own internal archive.
Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture, it raises really important questions about the psychological impact. Constantly seeking external validation through perfect photos, rather than truly internalizing the richness, the complexity, and crucially, the imperfection of a lived experience. When our memories are mostly filtered, edited, presented for an audience, do they truly remain our authentic memories? Or do they subtly morph into a performance, a carefully constructed narrative That constant quest for the ideal shot, the perfect filter, the most likes, it can tragically detach us from the present moment, from the very essence of what we're ostensibly trying to capture and remember, leading to a less vibrant, less deeply felt internal memory.
So, from our most basic memories to our deepest personal experiences, technology seems to be subtly yet profoundly reshaping how we engage with the world and with ourselves. And it feels like this trend, this outsourcing of human capability, it's not just continuing, it's accelerating with the almost dizzying rise of something even more powerful, something that promises to rewrite the rules of cognition itself, doesn't it? The source moves with real urgency into the accelerating pace of artificial intelligence, arguing quite forcefully that it's pushing us, maybe inevitably, toward even greater, more pervasive passivity. AI promises to simplify our lives even further, famously summarizing long articles, distilling complex reports, even generating entire stories for us.
Indeed, AI is definitely positioned here as the ultimate outsourcer of cognitive tasks, moving way beyond just storing data or doing simple calculations. Now it's tackling complex understanding, synthesis, summarization, even creative generation. And while its efficiency is undeniably revolutionary, the source clearly outlines the specific, profound dangers in this hyperconvenience, this effortless access to predigested information, this constant mental shortcut. It relentlessly shortens our attention spans. It dulls our patience for complexity. And most critically, it erodes our fundamental capacity for critical thinking, for independent analysis, for nuanced understanding. It bypasses the very process of learning.
Yeah, think about it from a cognitive angle. If an AI can instantly summarize a huge, dense academic article into, say, 500 words, you get the gist, sure, you get the key points. But by consistently bypassing the intricate process of engaging with that complex information yourself, the critical reading, the active synthesizing of ideas, grappling with nuance, the mental struggle to extract meaning, you fundamentally miss out on that vital cognitive workout. How does consistently skipping that demanding, effortful process impact our ability to handle real complexity, to sustain attention, to build our own nuanced arguments, to spot subtle biases? It's the profound difference between just understanding a summary and truly comprehending the original text. With all its layers, its context, its implications, its deeper meaning, it's the difference between getting information and developing wisdom.
And this breathtaking advance towards AI-driven convenience, towards automation, it brings us to a truly critical point, as the source really underscores. It's not just about what we choose to do anymore. It's increasingly got this powerful, often unspoken compulsion to adapt. The source astutely notes that as new technologies emerge, especially ones promising such huge efficiencies, we adapt. Often not out of free choice, but because we feel genuinely compelled to. Once again, we find ourselves, individually and collectively, at this crossroads, forced to accept a new reality, as the source puts it, where the path of least resistance becomes the dominant, almost inevitable route. This isn't just about individual preference. It feels like systemic pressure.
That's absolutely true, and it resonates deeply, I think. The social pressures are immense, that the professional expectations can feel overwhelming. If everyone else in your field or your social circle is adopting some new AI tool that makes them more efficient, gives them a perceived edge, you often feel you have no real choice but to jump on board too. Even if you have these deep, lingering doubts about its impact on your own skills, your own critical thinking. It speaks to that powerful technological imperative, doesn't it? That pervasive, often unquestioned belief. If we can do it with technology, if the capability exists, then we must do it. Everyone has to get on board, regardless of the subtle human cost.
Exactly. And this raises a really profound question for all of us to grapple with. What is the true extent of our individual agency in this rapidly changing technological landscape? Are we genuinely making conscious, deliberate choices? Or are we just being swept along by this irresistible current of innovation? A current that subtly yet powerfully dictates our behaviors, shapes our expectations, and increasingly reconfigures our very cognitive processes. The pressure to stay competitive, stay relevant, or just participate effectively in modern life, it often overrides any personal reservations we might have about these subtle erosions of our innate human abilities. It feels like a collective march forward, but are we really looking where we're going?
And this leads us straight to the fundamental question the source poses, a question that I think should hit home for all of us. Cuts right to the core of what it means to be human in this tech age. In our quest for convenience, how much of our own capability are we willing to sacrifice? That's it. That's the heart of the matter. The central tension Hassan illuminates so brilliantly.
Yeah, that ultimate question really pulls together everything we've talked about in this deep dive, doesn't it? The insidious erosion of memory phone numbers, birthdays outsourced, the diminished mental math from the calculator effect, that subtle loss of our internal compass with GPS reliance. delegating basic self-discipline to multiple alarms, the invisible costs of digital payments on spending, the algorithmic control shaping our tastes, the shift from intimate journaling to impersonal cloud storage, sensory deprivation, and recall issues with digital reading, the curated, maybe inauthentic nature of memories via filtered social media. And now the accelerating passivity and potential critical thinking decline promised by AI summaries. It all comes back to that question.
It frames this as not just an individual thing, but a societal reckoning. What are the profound long-term costs? Not just to us personally, our cognitive strength, our autonomy, but to our collective human capabilities, to the very essence of human ingenuity, resilience. If we consistently, almost reflexively, choose the path of least resistance, the path of maximum convenience, a path made so incredibly easy by ever-advancing tech, it genuinely forces us to reflect deeply on our own daily habits, on the unseen trade-offs we might be making every single day, often without even realizing the subtle yet powerful price we're paying. So this deep dive into the double-edged sword, Is Technology Making Us Weaker? By Mehdi Hassan. It's really highlighted this powerful essential tension, hasn't it? The undeniable amazing benefits of technology versus the profound, often hidden costs to our fundamental human capabilities. It's a nuanced, compelling argument, not anti-technology at all, but a really powerful, urgent call for more mindful, more conscious engagement with the tools that increasingly shape our lives. We're certainly not suggesting you throw out your smartphone or cancel Netflix. But maybe just be acutely aware of what you might be sacrificing, what innate human strength might be weakening in that constant pursuit of boundless convenience.
And that leads us to a crucial, maybe provocative final thought for you, the listener, to really chew on long after this deep dive is over. If we continue down this path, outsourcing more and more of our fundamental human faculties, our memory, navigation, critical thinking, even self-discipline, and our capacity for genuine, unprompted connection, what unique aspects of being human will ultimately become truly invaluable, perhaps even irreplaceable, in a world increasingly dominated by AI and digital ease? And maybe more importantly, how might we consciously, deliberately choose to cultivate and actively exercise those very human skills today, rather than just let them atrophy from disuse, to ensure we remain not just efficient users of technology, but profoundly capable, authentically human beings? Perhaps just as a starting point, try intentionally putting away the GPS on your next trip somewhere familiar. Try using only cash for a week, or even challenge yourself maybe to memorize just one new phone number. What might you rediscover about your own capabilities?